Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another instalment in the Sydney Railroad build. As I was looking back through the series, I see this is episode number 51. Actually, there's been a few more than that because a few videos didn't have their own number. So it's been quite a long series. But yes, we are getting towards the closing stages. I can now see the finish line in sight. The project for this instalment is to install the turntable, the roundhouse floor and the rest of the track in the engine terminal. So without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and get it done. Some time ago, when I was marking out the track locations for the main yard, I mentioned that I've decided to leave the engine terminal alone for the time being. I said I wanted to get the roundhouse floor and the turntable template out to make sure that it was going to fit. And it's a good job I did, because it doesn't. I was under the impression I had room for a 5-stall roundhouse, but as we can see from these floor sections, I can only fit a 4-stall. But that's okay, 4 is still enough. The turntable is also going to be slightly away from where I had planned it. It's going to be an inch or two closer to the main line, but that's no big deal. On the plus side, it leaves more space in the foreground for sheds and other scenic details like that. And there's still enough space in the back to put in everything the client's going to need to. But with the turntable moved further back, I am going to have to realign the lead tracks. And that is exactly why I decided to leave the full-size print in one piece for the time being. Well, yesterday, before I packed up, I got the 4 sections of the roundhouse floor glued together. Let that set up overnight. And the first thing I'm going to do today is get the turntable pit plotted accurately. So what I've done at the moment is I've got 2 straight edges lined up with the outer edges of the roundhouse. Just make sure they intersect right in the middle of the turntable. Next step is to drill a hole in the center so that I can work on getting the outline of the pit drawn on the benchwork. Well, I have now drilled a small hole right in the center, just drilling straight through the pattern. And I've also drilled a matching hole in a block of wood, got a nail in to use as a pivot point, and I've cut it off to the right length. So I'm now going to remove the paper pattern and then use that block of wood as a trammel to draw a circle on the benchwork. I've got to make sure the pit is the right size. I'm hoping that dark line is in exactly the right place and that they've left me enough tolerance, because once I've cut it, it'll be very difficult to cut it again. I'm a little bit concerned about the accuracy of it, because although the front of the roundhouse was drawn exactly the right distance away, the actual shape of the roundhouse wasn't quite accurate. If we slide out of the way, we can see that from here to the corner and then from there to there, the pattern is drawn with the front wall significantly wider than it actually is. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why it's wrong. But hopefully the pattern is correct as far as the size of the hole I'm going to drill. I've also used the same nail to poke holes where I need to drill out for the clips. So there's 8 of them, 1 of them there, and then 7 more. I've also made sure I lined it up so that the start position lines up with one of the turntable tracks, and the no track area is positioned far away from the nearest track. So I just got to get rid of the pattern, draw the circle, cut the hole, and then I'll come back and continue. Well, there is the pit marked out. Next thing to do is to get the jigsaw and cut it. Actually, come to think of it, I think I might drill the holes first, where there's still more wood available to support the drill and stop it wandering into the hole. I've also got to cut out the little notch for the sensor. You can see it there now. So let me get on with that, and I'll be right back. Well, there's the hole cut out. There is some framing that runs underneath it. I'm not sure whether a 1-inch deep pit is enough. I'm going to have to go get the turntable and find out. I might have to thin down that joist slightly from the top. It's no big deal, but there's no point in going to the effort of cutting it down if I don't need to. So let me go get the turntable pit and test fit it and see if it works the way it is. Well, I did need to cut a little bit out of that joist. The pit needed to be about 1/4 of an inch deeper in the middle, but I took out a lot more than I needed to, just so I didn't have to risk having to recut it. And also I've noticed that the cut line drawn around the edge was kind of loose. So note to self, in future, cut on the inside of the line instead of outside of it, because there's almost too much play. So the next tasks, I think, are to get the pit permanently installed and then to plot all the rest of the track in the engine terminal. Let me just turn the camera off, get back to work, and I'll talk to you again later. Well, I'm not sure how much further I can go today. The mounting hardware for the turntable only works on 1/2 inch or thinner sub-road bed, and I have a 1-inch thick sandwich of foam and plywood. Actually, it's slightly more than 1 inch. It's nearer 1 1/8 inches because the foam is slightly thicker than 1/2 inch. I have put in a call to Walthers to find out exactly what size screw I need to order for replacement. Hopefully they get back to me before I have to go into town tomorrow, so I can look for them then, or I might just have to order them online. Well, I've weighted down the turntable pit and the roundhouse floor exactly the right distance apart from each other. I've cut all the rails to exactly the right length. That's about all I can do for the time being, because I want to make sure that the start position for the turntable lines up with one of the roundhouse stalls. It's close at the moment, but I might need to adjust it, and I can't do that until I have the power supply. I neglected to buy one when I bought the turntable. It just completely slipped my mind. I was thinking I'd be able to use one of those I already had, but their voltage is too low. So I've just ordered the recommended power supply for the turntable. It'll be a few days before it gets here, but hopefully my rail joiners should get here any time now, and I should be able to continue with track laying elsewhere. My last couple of sessions out here have revolved around getting the turntable installed. The bolts supplied with the turntable are nowhere near long enough. They're only good for sub-road bed up to a maximum of 1/2 inch thick, and I've got a sandwich of plywood and foam. The installation instructions for foam say to make it a force fit, but unfortunately the template supplied with it results in a fairly loose fit, which is what's necessary to be able to adjust it right. Anyway, after several unsuccessful attempts to find appropriate bolts, I've just glued it in place. I hope it doesn't give any trouble, because I've probably voided the warranty by doing so. Anyway, I did take the precaution of testing it before that. I got everything wired up, and I got it to track to position 0, which is the very first test to be done. I can't program any of the exit tracks just yet because I haven't installed them. I was just about getting ready to install the floor of the roundhouse when I realized I've still got to add the inspection pits and cut slots in the foam accordingly. So I'm going to draw the inspection pits on the foam so I know where to cut, and then I'm going to go inside and install them, glue them in place, and I'll be back out later. So let me get on with that, and I'll talk to you again soon. Well, there it is with the inspection pits cut out, or at least holes cut in the foam to take the inspection pits. I've also glued the pits to the floor. That's now sitting in my basement with weights on it. Some of the pits were a little bit warped, so I'm going to have to leave the weights on for several hours while the solvent goes rock hard. So all I'm going to do now is just clean up the mess here, and then it's back to waiting. So let's just fast forward to the next step, and I'll see you again then. Well, there is the floor of the roundhouse temporarily in its place with all the pits installed. It did take me 2 attempts, because the first time I cut the grooves in the foam a little bit on the tight side, and it didn't go in with any kind of wiggle room to allow me to adjust it. So I cut them just a little bit wider and now it fits perfectly. So the next thing I do is get rid of the track and permanently glue it in place. Well, there it is, permanently glued down. All I can sensibly do now is leave the area and wait for the glue to set. I don't want to risk disturbing it. Well, after leaving the floor a few hours for the glue to go nice and hard, I have now installed the 4 roundhouse tracks. Starting from the far side, tracks 1 and 3 are the 2 tracks that were already programmed into the turntable when it came. Track 2 is the start position, and track 4, I just lined it up where it's nice and straight, and I haven't programmed that track yet. I am going to let those weights do their job, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to mark out the rest of the engine terminal all the way back down to the ladder at the other end and work out exactly where these tracks end up hitting the turntable. And it really doesn't matter, because the nice thing about the Walters turntable is that tracks can be programmed anywhere. There is a narrow strip at about 90 degrees from start position where you can't have any powered tracks. But that doesn't make any difference on this railroad because it's a long way from anywhere that I need an exit track. Well, I've now removed the weights from the roundhouse spurs, and I've positioned the turntable where I think works best for lining up with one of the leads. I've now shredded the track plan here, marked out all the other engine terminal tracks. It's been a whole day since I've been out here. I glued those tracks down early yesterday afternoon, and then I got so engrossed in a layout design later in that afternoon that I ended up not coming back out here again. I had a client pay me extra to render the whole design in 3D, and I was having so much fun I just stayed working on it until bedtime. And this morning I had my annual eye appointment and I just got back. So it's going to be only a half day again today, but I think I can make quite a lot of progress on the engine terminal area. Next thing I'm going to do is go back inside, get the turnouts that I need, and I'll come back out and install some track. So let me just do that and I'll talk to you again later. Well, I started with these 2 turnouts in here. First the dummy one, and then this one's a right hand number 10. And then I laid the old main line most of the way to the end. Haven't quite finished it yet. I use up some pieces when I have them. And then I went back and put the next 2 turnouts in the next part of the ladder. And it's almost 6 o'clock, so I'm just going to go in now and I'll come out and talk to you again tomorrow. Well, that is all the track in the engine terminal finished. This morning I started off by lining up the straight entry track and then getting that to line up perfectly over the other side. Then I repeated the process with the second entry track, and then after that the garden tracks were just plain sailing because they didn't have to line up on anything. They can go anywhere because this turntable can be indexed at any point. We don't have to go with a fixed angle of divergence. Anyway, that's all I'm going to do this morning. I've got to go out in a few minutes and I'll continue this afternoon. Well, that is all the track finished in the engine terminal area and the turntable programmed. Didn't take long to program it, but I did have to refer back to the directions because it's been a few years since I've done one. Anyway, there's 2 places I can go next. I can either go back and fill in the yard area, or I can continue in this direction, continue with the main lines up over the highest elevation and to the small switching town. Well, that's all for this installment. Hope you enjoyed the show, found it useful or interesting, or both. Next week I will continue with the track laying, and there's only going to be a couple more installments of that left. And I hope to see you back here for that. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and bye for now.